And one is as of yet unidentified, but we hope to remedy that by the end of the program. Sasha, did you want to add something to this?
No. Everything was said by you. Thanks.
Okay, great. Oh, already. These people are good. Not necessarily correct, but they are giving good answers. Very nice. So welcome. If you're just tuning in, help us identify the people on the screen before the program begins by writing in the questions and answers section who they are. Sasha, do you want to say anything else about them while people
No.
are putting the names in?
But actually already one, two, at least 3 were recognized. I will just check for others. And when I'm checking, do you see my screen or not? With the list of answers.
I don't see the list of answers, no.
Okay. Oh yes, there is one, the fourth one. For one, already the last name was recognized, but not the first. Okay. Actually, there is just one who is not recognized, but it is difficult because it's a modern portrait of the rabbi from the 16th century. So I don't think there was any portrait of him during the 16th century, but everyone else was recognized already.
Okay, do you want to give some hints of who they are for the people who haven't figured it out?
Yeah. So there are 2 persons from the 16th century, with woman, and with rabbi. There is one person from the 17th century. With ones are from the 19th century. A 20th century is with pianist and with 2 persons, of course. This is 21st century.
Excellent.
Yeah. So there is one. The hint is, of course, here.
Yeah.
His mask. Otherwise, it would be. First of all, I put just the portrait, and then I thought that it would be too difficult. So this is why I added a picture. I found a picture with the hint here.
Yeah, and welcome to those just coming in. We're taking guesses as to who these famous people are. They're all from the Ottoman Empire, right?
At least their ancestors.
Their ancestors are from the, okay.
Either themselves or because for this rabbi, he was not born in the Ottoman Empire, but he lived in the Ottoman Empire. This one was not born in the Ottoman Empire. He was born well after the end of the Ottoman Empire, but in the former territory of Ottoman Empire. And with, yes, everyone, this woman also was not born in the Ottoman Empire. She came to the Ottoman Empire. I will check the answers.
For those of you just coming in, the answers, please, that you know, please put them in the question and answer. Welcome to the Jewish Gen program. We're just having a little fun before we begin, in addition to when we begin.
Okay, now there is already the correct answer even for the first name of one person, not only last name.
Now we're getting a lot of good answers.
Okay, there is a question. One person is asking, can you send, so not me, but I think it's rather for you, for the organizers, links for the lectures that were given in the past, how people can find for example, my previous lecture 1 week ago, or some others of my colleagues.
Yeah, and the answers are on the Jewish Gen discussion groups. There are links to the past lectures on them. So if you go into the discussion group and look for it, search for it specifically, you will find them. I think the one for your lecture last week was just a day or two ago, maybe 3, was listed.
Maybe can you, Karen, or you, Kaylin, just to see, to show maybe your screen and to show something? No, not or after the lecture.
Okay, on how to get it. I will make that available. Very good. I will do that. Thank you. All right, so you want to start giving the answers? That would be great.
Yeah. So hello, everybody. So the answers here. First, 16th century, Beatrice de Luna, it was her maiden name, and her married name was Mendes, and her Jewish name, so this was the name she used as when she was still openly, not openly Jewish, when she was still Portuguese Catholic, but her Jewish name was Gracia Nassi, and this is the name she took. She restored when she came already in Italy, then to Ottoman Empire. I think she is the richest Jewish woman of all the times, in comparison to the wealth of her contemporaries. I will mention her later. So it's middle of 16th century. Born in Portugal, then lived in Antwerp, then Italy and Ottoman Empire, Istanbul. Which one was the most difficult? Joseph Caro, very famous Sephardic rabbi, the author of the very famous rabbinical work, Shulchan Aruch, 16th century. He was born in Spain, and when he was just 3 years old, his family was expelled from Spain, and so he lived in the Ottoman Empire, 16th century. This rabbi is totally different. It is also very famous, but not for the same reason as Joseph Caro. Sabbatai Tzvi was a false messiah of the middle of the second half of the 17th century, who got at the end, he got converted to Islam when he was suggested either to become Muslim or to be killed. Then Carasso, the company Danone in Europe and American subsidiaries called Danone, was founded by Isaac Carasso, the father of Daniel Carasso. And Daniel Carasso is a person who developed this company. He made it international. He lived in Spain and France. The family was from the Ottoman Empire. Pianist Murray Perachia, his ancestors are from Salonika. So I think this person was the best, the most easy to recognize. Many people recognized him. For Carasso, many people said that it is, of course, the founder of Danone, but at the beginning, it was suggested it was the father, Isaac Carasso. No, it's the son. Daniel Carasso. Sabbatai Tzvi was also recognized by many persons. And actually, Gracia Nassi as well. This person, it was more difficult because it was not as known as other person maybe, but as the CEO of Pfizer, he now is the person, one of the most important at least his company in the world in this current moment. And so all these persons were recognized, maybe just except for Joseph Caro, because many people suggested to Rambam, Maimonides, Nachmanides, etc. But and this one's the most difficult because we are not renowned. I just like the picture. It's a rich Jewish couple from Bosnia at the end of the 19th century. So we're absolutely not known. It's just, I like it, their costumes and the picture itself. And so also I wanted to provide some suspense when people were trying to recognize. So for nobody recognized. And it is a good answer. Okay. So today we will I will speak about Jews from the
Sasha?
Ottoman Empire. Yeah.
Sasha, I just want to introduce you.
Yes.
For those who may not know you.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'll be really fast and suggest that you just tip your camera a little so we can see your whole face. That would be wonderful. I just wanted to welcome you. I'm Karen Franklin, past co-chair of the Board of Governors of JewishGen. Delighted to wish you a happy Hanukkah and thank each and every one of you for coming today. There are over 650 of you on this call. And just to, last week we explored East European names. This week, Dr. Beider will use language as the tool to help us explore the names from a different area in the world. Today's talk is one of a series of JewishGen programs. You can learn more about the upcoming programs on the JewishGen homepage and click on the JewishGen Talks box or go to JewishGen.org/live for the list of upcoming programs. And a recording of today's program will be available, and I will make available to you at the end of the call details for getting previous programs, recordings of previous programs. You may pose your questions to the speaker on the Q&A section at the bottom of your pages, which I can see you all know how to use. But only we can see your questions to the speaker. So you will not be able to converse with each other. Sorry about that. Very briefly, Dr. Beider is well known and respected in the Jewish genealogy world. He has a PhD in applied mathematics and a second PhD in Jewish studies. He uses onomastics and linguistics as tools to unravel the history of the Jewish people. He's written a series of reference books, both on Jews from Eastern Central Europe, as well as the Ottoman Empire. And these books can be found on avotenu.com. How'd I do? Welcome, Sasha. Now you can begin.
Okay, thank you. So a small correction. I have never published it until now, any book about Ottoman Empire. It is my current project. But I started it 1 year ago, but it was when I actually ended the work on the Jews, Ashkenazic Jews, after studying their last name, first name, and the language, Yiddish language in 2015. I thought, what could I do now? And there are particular circumstances, maybe I will explain this in another lecture if I will present something about North Africa or about Italy and Portuguese community later, not today. But in any case, I got interested and really passionate about the history and the names of non-Ashkenazic Jews. And my first work, as I'm living in France, and in France, the largest group of Jews who are currently living in France, they came from North Africa. And so this is why my first study in this domain was a dictionary of Jewish surnames from Maghreb, Gibraltar and Malta. But actually, well, Gibraltar and Malta is just very few hundreds names. Actually, of these 11,000 of surnames, almost all of them came from Maghreb. Actually, Maghreb is Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya. And actually, even names from Gibraltar and Malta, a majority of them came from the same area. They were not, of course, acquired in Gibraltar or in Malta. This book was published 3 years ago. by Avoteno, and then during the next years I was working. So I crossed the Mediterranean Sea, and I worked on the area which is in front of North Africa, so southern France, all of Italy, and North European Sephardic community, Portuguese community from Amsterdam, London, Hamburg. And also from all this area, many people from Portuguese community, they came to Americas, especially to the Caribbean, Curacao Island, and some other, Jamaica, Barbados. So all this area were covered by the book, which was published at the beginning, at the turn of this year. And so for already more than 1 year, I'm working on the similar study, this time for Ottoman Empire. To close my Sephardic, non-Ashkenazic at least, trilogy, as I did in the past, the trilogy concerning Jews from Eastern Europe. There will be 3 parts: general information concerning Ottoman Empire and its Jews. Then I will speak about Sephardi legacy in the Ottoman Empire, and about people, Jews with other roots, so whose ancestors, or for whom at least one part of their ancestors never lived in medieval Spain or medieval Portugal. So we were not properly speaking Sephardic. We will start with general information. First of all, non-Jewish elements, but just to understand better the Jewish history of Ottoman Empire, we need to just to mention a few key dates from for the Ottoman Empire. So the Ottoman Empire was founded at the end of the 13th century by Osman I to Othman I. So this is why it is called Ottoman Empire. It was founded in a very small area, which is now situated in the territory of modern Turkey. Then during the next generation, already for Osman the first, there was an expansion, military conquests, and one of the key dates later is at the end of the 14th century, a Battle of Kosovo, during which the Ottoman army defeated the army of Serbian. And so after that, the territory of modern Serbia, and immediately after that, Bosnia, and other neighboring area were conquered by Ottoman Turks. Then 1/2 of century after that, the only place in the territory of modern Turkey that was still remaining non-Ottoman, Constantinople, was taken by Ottoman army, so 1453. And in 1529, it is the last expansion of Ottomans. It was a siege of Vienna, but this siege of Vienna was not, in comparison to all previous mentioned dates, it was not glorious for Ottomans because they were defeated. They were never able to take Vienna, and after that, the borders of Ottoman Empire, not immediately, but later, they started to remove to the territory occupied by, taken by Ottoman Turks, started to be diminished. So here you see the map that shows the growth of the empire. So it started just with a very small area here, when it was the empire by Osman I. Then during the 14th century, the territory of modern Bulgaria, a large part of Greece, including Salonika, was taken already. A large part of modern Turkey was taken as well. Then Serbia, one part of Macedonia and Bosnia were taken during the next period, and the last territories that were acquired already in the 16th century by the military forces led by Suleiman the Magnificent were corresponding to Hungary and northern Romania. So all these areas, as well as you see here, Libya, one part of Iraq, they were taken during the 16th century. And so this was, here you see the largest area that was ever occupied by Ottoman Turks. And then gradual decline. It was especially valid for the starting with the 18th century, and it ended during 20th century. So first of all, Hungary was taken by Austrians, and so Austrians took Hungary from Turks. It was at the end of the 17th century. Then at the end of 18th century, Crimea, which was also part of Turkey, was taken by Russian troops during the reign of Catherine II. And then there were numerous wars between between Greeks and Turks, between Russians and Turks. And after before the start of the First World War, where Ottoman Empire was covering just modern Turkey and one part of European. There was also a European part which was small enough. It is shown here. So in the 1923, when the end of the empire, so after the defeat of Turks during the First World War, was proclaimed in Treaty of Sevres in 1920, the Ottoman Empire had its borders only the modern Turkey, and even not all of modern Turkey, because here this part was given to Greece, so the part covering Izmir, for example. But after that, there was a war between Greece and Turkey, and after the end of this war, which was won by Turkey at 1933, the winner, who was Kemal, who took the name Kemal Atatürk, the father of all Turks, proclaimed the end of the empire, and beginning with this moment, it was already a Turkish republic. So these were dates that correspond not to Jews, but to Ottoman Empire, globally speaking. Now, here you see on this map how during different periods the borders were changing. And so the borders immediately before the First World War were shown here on the yellow background. Okay, and so what is the simplified scheme of the genesis of Jewish communities in the Ottoman Empire? The simplified scheme is shown here. Usually in the vulgarized textbooks, it is said that Ottoman Jews were mainly due to the expulsion of Jews from Spain in 1492 and Portugal in 1497. And so this flow reached the territory of the former Ottoman Empire. And so from here, from the Iberian Peninsula, Jews came to the territory of former Ottoman Empire, so modern Greece, modern Bulgaria, modern Turkey, modern Syria, and one part of the land of Israel. it is really simplified. And so what I will try to show, even many things in this scheme are correct. Again, as during my lecture 1 week ago, I would like to provide some nuances for this scheme using arguments from names and from some demographic um, elements. So what was the situation before Constantinople was taken by Turks? So before 1453. Here the map is, of course, the modern one. But the city of Istanbul was called Constantinople, and it was the center of the Byzantine Empire. And there were Jews who were living here. They were Byzantine Jews who were speaking the language of their neighbors, and their neighbors were Greek speaking. So Christians living in Greece or in the territory of modern Turkey in many places, they were mainly in the area where Jews were living, they were mainly Greek speaking. And so Roman Yots, it is a term used in the scholarly, and now not only scholarly, now also popular literature about Jews from this area. So designate Jews who are even Greek speaking in their everyday life. And so this was the territory where we were living before 1453. But on other areas that were later taken by Turks, so in the territory of modern Syria and modern Iraq, and northern part of the land of Israel, there were also other Jews who were living. They were Arabic speaking, and usually they are called Mizrahim, Umastarabi. So just to emphasize the fact that they were speaking Arabic language in their everyday life. Why Greek speaking were called, Jews were called Roman Yots? It is because the Byzantine Empire was, it was the formerly eastern part of the Roman Empire. And so once Western part of Roman Empire was not existing anymore, this part was still considered to be Romania. So it was the only remaining part of the former Roman Empire. And so the root here comes from Romania. So the area of former Roman Empire, but more concretely, it's Byzantine Empire here. And also there were Ashkenazim who were living on the border area of areas that were later taken by Ottoman Turks, so mainly in Hungary. So what is my scheme if I add some nuances, and I will detail it later. So the contribution of Sephardim was really very, very important, but it was not the only source. Roman Yots and Mizrahim also provided important demographic contribution to a Jewish family who lived in the Ottoman Empire before 19th century, smaller than the Sephardim, but still important. So it was a large minority. Then there is also another source, which is Italian and mainly Southern Italian, which was also provided a very important contribution to Ottoman Empire. And then there was a much smaller contribution from Jews from southern France, so from Provence, from Provençal Jews, and from North Africa, and also small contribution of Ashkenazim. I'm speaking about the period before 19th century because during the 19th and during the 20th century, there were no additional migration from by Sephardim, of course, from southern France. Romagnots were already here, Mizrahim also, but there were large migration of Ashkenazim here and large migration of North African Jews to different areas of Ottoman Empire. But this was already 19th and 20th century. So what is the Sephardi legacy? Sephardi legacy here, you see a scheme which is not mine. I just took it from, actually I took it from Wikipedia. I think the person who put it into Wikipedia to Sephardic Jews entry took it from some book which was certainly published at least 100 years ago. About 100 years ago. In any case, this scheme is simplified. This is a scheme of Sephardic migration from the Spain and Portugal to the territory of Ottoman Empire and also to Western Europe. You see different colors. A red color correspond to early migration, so directly during the expulsion period. 16th century, 17th century, this is wrong already. But in black one correspond to later migration. We will speak about them later. So it is simplified and partly false. Why it is partly false? Because after the migration from Spain, we were not really, at the end of 15th century, there were no migration. There were large migration to Morocco, but very small to Algeria, very small to Tunisia, just because this area was occupied by Spaniards at this period. And there was certainly no migration to Sicily because Sicily was part of the Kingdom of Aragon. So Jews were expelled from Sicily almost at actually the next year after they were expelled from Spain. So this part is wrong, but this part is globally correct. And so we will see now what are different new details. First of all, there were no Spain at that period. There was a Kingdom of Castile, crown, which is much larger than the Kingdom of Aragon. For example, crown of Aragon was covering not only northern, northeastern Spain, but also Sicily. And so these were two states that were unified because of the marriage of the Queen of Castile and the King of Aragon, but still formally speaking, it was not a unified country at that moment. And there was also here in the country of Navarre, independent one, and Portugal. So it's not just Spain, it was 4 countries from this area from which Jews were expelled. Now, so when we look into the legacy of Sephardic Jews, we will see it on many, many levels. So the first level is given names used in different community in Ottoman Empire, and not only in Ottoman Empire, in North Africa as well. So here I provided just a sample of names. Of all of them are female in my example. Well, all of them are meaningful in Spanish, actually. Alegra, joyful, sol, it's sun, flor is flower, moon for Luna, vida is life, palomba is dove, reina is queen, senora, donna, estrella is star, diamante is an understandable, perla is understandable as well, aggressive. So these are the names that were common in many, many communities of Ottoman Empire. Here I put some pictures. Here is a picture from Salonika that I like it. Only one person is Jewish, actually, as the left one. Here, on the right one, it is a Muslim woman, which is quite understandable, but the central one is a Christian from Bulgaria. So these are the 3 women, 19th century from Salonika. These 2 women and 1 man are from Turkey, and this is a woman from Syria. Um, we have also a large number of names, last names, surnames that we find in all community of Ottoman Empire. Here I provided just a small sample of names starting with A. And it is even for A, it's not complete because there are hundreds of names of last names of Sephardic Jews that first what were initially used in the Castile or Aragon or Navarre or Portugal, and then after the expulsion from these areas, we find all of them in Ottoman Empire. So Abravanel, Abulafia, Adroc, Al-Musnino, Aderet, Al-Bohel, Alfanderi, Al-Adjem, Al-Kalai, etc., etc. So here's the picture I put. It's picture of the famous Rabbi Isaac Abravanel and a picture of Rabbi Al-Kalai from the 19th century. So this is, again, it's just a sample. Actually, I could list several hundreds of names that are clearly of Sephardic origin. And why it is so large? It is because at the moment of expulsion, at the end of 14th century, 15th century, almost all Jews from almost all Sephardic Jews who were expelled, they had already family names which were fixed, and they were used for some of families already for even several centuries. It's totally different from the history, for example, of Ashkenazic Jews, for whom last names were mainly taken at the turn of 19th century. For Sephardic Jews, numerous names, last names existed already in a large majority of them exist already in the 15th century, but some of them exist already in 10th or 11th century. So here it's a big difference between Sephardic Jews and Ashkenazic Jews concerning surnames. Judeo-Spanish language, of course, it's a direct example of legacy of Sephardic Jews. Other terms
to try and figure out who the people in the this.
The Judeo-Spanish language, it is also called, most in the popular sources, it is usually called Ladino. But in scholarly terms, with the same term is in scholarly works, it's the same term is applied to something else. But at any case, it's a everyday language of Jews from a large majority of Jews from Ottoman Empire, not from the area of Syria and Iraq, but from area of modern Turkey, modern Greece, modern Bulgaria, many from Egypt, etc., etc. And it is based on the 15th century Castilian, so it can be called, its source can be called Old Spanish, because modern Spanish is also based on Castilian language, and it was everyday tongue of Ottoman Empire. So it's a cultural marker of Ottoman Jews. The main religious rite in all of the Ottoman Empire, almost all of the Ottoman Empire, we will speak about the exception, it is Sephardi. So here you see the picture of Maimonides. So that means that Sephardi rabbis were extremely influential, and all Jews, or a majority of Jews from Ottoman Empire acquired this religious rite that was brought from Spain, from what later became Spain. The migration I described before, it is not the only migration of Sephardi Jews, because there was a second layer of migrants of what is called Portuguese Jews or ex-crypto Jews. Other terms used in different works is conversos, Marranos, New Christians, Anusim. All this correspond to the same entity. So Jews who were converted at the end of 15th century by mainly in Portugal, Many of them were of Spanish origin. And then during this next centuries, they, some of them got returned to the religion of their ancestors by moving to other area. So as a most, I put here several famous examples of Jews with Portuguese roots, like Baruch Spinoza, a rabbi Fonseca de Abuab de Fonseca, and David Ricardo, the political economist from England. So the centers of for Portuguese Jews were first of all Antwerpen, but it was here. It was part of Spain, so they could not be openly Jewish. They continued to be to show themselves as if they were still Catholic. But then they was migrating to Ferrara and Cone in Italy. Here they were becoming open Jews. The same for Venice, Hamburg at the end of the 16th century. Ferrara and Cone, it was mid of the 16th century. So end of the 16th century, it was Hamburg and Venice. Amsterdam also from the turn of the 15th, 16th century. Livorno, the same period in Italy. London from the mid of the 17th century, and Bordeaux, Bayonne, or in the southwestern France, but here it's like in Antwerpen. They continue to be not openly Jewish, but they continue to formally be declared as if they were Catholic. So they became openly Jewish only with the French Revolution, when the Judaism became authorized in France. And from all this area, and especially from Italy, many of them came to Ottoman Empire. And so here you see some examples of surnames of Portuguese Jews. So these names were not initially Jewish. These names were named like Cardoso, Miranda, Suarez, Teixeira, Pereira, Silveira, Rodriguez, Fernandez Diaz. All these names were Catholic names. And some of these Jews, when they, some of these persons, when they became openly Jewish, we did not abandon their Catholic names. They continued to be called with these names, but some of them returned to their so the Jewish names that were used by their Jewish ancestors several generations before, like Nasi, for example. This is Beatrice de Luna, who became Nasi, her nephew, who was one of the richest men of Ottoman Empire during the same period, and João Rodrigo, a Portuguese physician who, when he came to Salonika, returned to his to the name used by his ancestors. He became known as Amato Lusitanos. Lusitanos means just someone from Portugal. Amato was the last name. So this is the Sephardic legacy, but it is not the only legacy, because there are other roots for Jews from the Ottoman Empire. And so, first of all, immediately after Turks took Constantinople, so 2 years after that, there was a mass migration of all Romaniots, or not all, but a large number of Romaniots from all the territory of modern Turkey, for the territory of modern Greece and Bulgaria, to Constantinople. It was apparently, as it is, was really mass migration. It was in a large part a transfer, which was promulgated by Turkish authority just to populate Constantinople, that was abandoned by many non-Muslim inhabitants. So there was a large transfer of Roman Jews to Constantinople immediately after Constantinople was taken by Turks. Then for this, the first chief rabbis of Ottoman Empire, they were, so the title that became used, Haham Bashi, they were also Romaniots, so Elia Kapsali, Moses Kapsali, Eliahu Mizrahi. Kapsali, it's a name that survived until the 20th century, and it comes, the family of the first chief rabbi came to Constantinople, so the future Istanbul, from Crete, but the name, when they came to Crete island, they came from the small town in, not far from Crete in southern Greece called Kapsali. Many Jews came from Italy. And why we came from Italy? Because Sicily, that was, excuse me, that was part of Ottoman, of Aragon, Kingdom of Aragon. Jews were expelled in 1493. In the other two southern parts, provinces of Italy, Apulia and Calabria, Jews were also expelled first time in 1510 and then in 1541. And then from central Italy and even from northern Italy, there were many Jews who came later to Ottoman Empire because of different economic reasons or because of some expulsion from papal states in the 16th century. And so if we look to the direction of the main destination of migration of Sephardic Jews in the turn of the 16th century after the expulsion, it was the city of Salonika, Adrianople, Constantinople, and Safed. So now Salonika is Thessaloniki in Greece, Edirne in Turkey, Adrianople, Istanbul, and Sfat in Israel. And so for all these areas, we have data from censuses which were done by Turkish authorities, by not just by city, but by community of the cities. So if we look at Adrianople, in which in 1519 there was a census for tax paying done, we have here a number of households for different communities that were present here at that moment. And so you see here 45 households in the community called Portugal. So of course, these people were coming from Portugal, 42 from community called Hispania, so Spain, community called Gerush. Gerush means in Hebrew just expulsion. And so we don't know from where they were expelled, but looking to the date, it's there is a high probability that they still came in Spain. But here in the middle, we have already a community from southern Italy. But all others, Catalan, Aragon, Toledo, are also in Spain, and also a small group of Ashkenazim community called Aleman. Aleman means just German in Turkish. So clearly from this data, we see that Edirne at that moment was mainly Sephardic community, with a few, just a small exception. But if we look at Sfat or Safed in the mid of the 16th century, we also see a large number of Sephardim. Again, it's not a person, it's a household, so families. But also we see a large number of non-Sephardim as well. For example, Mostarib, it means a community of Jews speaking Arabic, and so they clearly were local ones from the Levant. It was big enough. There was already a big a community that was not small coming from Italy, from North Africa, several community coming from Italy, and several community coming which were Ashkenazic, so just generally Ashkenazic, and also one Magyar from Hungary. But globally speaking, again, if we compare these numbers to the number to the left, we see that at Sfat and this period, the city was mainly Sephardic. But if we look at Salonika, which is usually considered the Sephardic community by par excellence, we see again a large number of Sephardim, but still we see also very large number of, I put in red the Italian community from southern Italy, Sicily, Calabria, Apulia, Otranto is part of Apulia. Italian, which means just Italian, we don't know from what part, but it should be from southern Italy. So a large group of Italian that were already present in Salonika. There was still a group of Romagnot. It was the oldest community here at Schaim, and there was some Jews from Ashkenazic, some Jews who came from Provence in southern France, and Jews from Maghreb. So globally speaking, Sephardim were dominant, but still you see that Italian component here is really important. Again, it's a number of household. And in Constantinople, the situation was different. Here you see in 1603, so 100 after the expulsion, years after the expulsion, we have data for households. Many of them were clearly Sephardim. I think Gerush, again, I think it should be Sephardim. But there were also some Italian, Sicilian, or from Calabria, some Ashkenazic. But what is really important, they were all, old community of Romagnot was largely dominant in comparison to both Sephardim and Italian. So the number of household of Romagnots was, if we make a sum of all this, it will, of all Sephardim, it will still be almost one half of Romagnots. So this was still Greek-speaking Jews who were living here because of the transfer that was that occurred before, immediately after Constantinople was taken. But this situation with a large number of Romagnots, it was really peculiar specifically to Constantinople. We have traces of all these Jews, of some of them. For example, Jews coming from Apulia, we find in the 20th century names like Coduto, Mitrani, Taranto, Trinchi, Varsano. They correspond to they were already used in southern Italy in the area called Apulia. They were also named as Gerasi, Calabrese. Calabrese just means someone from Calabria. Notrica, Polastro, Rossano from Calabria. We also have from Naples area, Capuano, Tiano, Matalon, and many names from Sicily. I put some example, Modica, Messina, Augustari, Adato, Meionis, Shaki, Surmani, Talvi, Cimino. And we also have a name Russo, which was very common in Ottoman Empire. It does not mean that the ancestors came from Russia. Russo just means red-haired. It all southern Italian dialects. So Russo could, some of them came from Sicily, others came from Campania, others came from Apulia, others came from Calabria. And so this is a very typical name from southern Italy, red-haired, red. Then we also have some names from central Italy, like Florentine, a common name in Ottoman Empire. Ancona, it's the name of the city in Italy. Modiano, it is a name with a modification that occurred in Ottoman Empire of the common Italian name Modigliano, and some other names like Alatini, Fin, Cefano, Ventura, Recanazzi, Sonino, Lanciano, etc. Ashkenazim, also some of them came from Italy. So the name like Venezia, it's a typical name for Jews from Venice. Soncino, you see here a picture of the small town of Soncina in northern Italy, but the family came from Germany to Soncina, and then one branch migrated. In Soncina, they founded a very famous printing house, and one branch migrated to Istanbul, where there was a very famous also Soncino printing house. And also Morpurga, it's, well, it's not really exactly Italy. The family came from Italy, but the name Morpurga comes from the town of Maribor in Italian Morpurgo, in what is now Slovenia. In Luzzato is also a very common name for Ashkenazim from Italy, from northern Italy. A few names from France that also were used in Ottoman Empire. Harari, that means just mountaineers, and actually in Hebrew, and rabbis who originated in Montpellier, because Mont means mountain, they took this name Harari. Perpignan is a city in southern France. Provençal means just someone from Provence, and some other names like Sarfati, of course, which means from France, Caspi, Treves, Beresi, Lattes, all some of these names did not come directly from France. For example, Sarfati, some of them came from Germany, other came from Spain, but the ancestors, ultimate ancestors, came from France, because Sarfati means France. And surnames of Mizrahim, they were common already in 19th century, and especially in Syria. I just suggested a sample here, Dweck, a very famous rabbinical family from Aleppo. Ades, here you see a Ades synagogue that was founded by Ades family. Bukai, this is a very interesting name because that means someone, in Arabic, someone from the village in the northern Israel now, which is called Pekin, but in Arabic it means Bukai. And so this is a village where Jews lived for several thousands of years without moving. Actually, this is one of the oldest community in the Jewish history. It is not far from the border of Lebanon. And some other names. So you see some example of very typical names of Syrian Jews like Abadi, Antebi, Anzarut, Esses, Hamui, Hemsani, Slelat, Shehebar, Seitune, Tavil, etc. So this is a typical names from Syrian Jews. They were already known, many of them in the 18th century in Damascus or Aleppo. These were the two cities. And so what, just to finish, what are the traces of Roman yachts? Very difficult to find. And why is it very difficult to find? Because Roman yachts had no surnames until the 20th century, with very few examples. And so in Constantinople, we know that the fusion with Sephardim occurred at the end of the 17th century, when Roman yachts, which were demographically more were prevalent at that time in Istanbul, they switched to Ladino. We have no time to discuss why, but in any case, they adopted the culture of Sephardim. And in the 20th century, there were only few community that was still Greek speaking. The most famous one is Ioannina, but there were also Jews in Arta who were still Greek speaking, in the city of Chalkis, not far from Athens, that were also Greek speaking. And the currently only world, I think the only community which is still following the Greek, the Roman yacht rite is in New York City, founded by people from Ioannina. But we know actually that from some historical sources that in Arta, for example, one of the city in 16th century, there were congregation from Corfu, which is the island here, from southern Italy, so Apulia, Calabria, Sicily. But gradually all these migrants, they abandoned their Italian language and they switched to Greek. And so we also, if we look in the name used, for example, in Ioannina at the beginning of the 20th century, we have many Russo. We have also names like Al-Hanati, Al-Kalai, Camondo, Marcado, Negrin, which are clearly Sephardic. But so that means that this community, Ioannina, here, it results from the merger of Italian, Sephardic, and Roman yacht Jews, but for some reasons, again, I have no time here to discuss, the Roman yacht component became culturally more influential than others, and so the community switched in its totality to religious rite of Roman yachts and to the Greek language. There was also name Eskenazi. Again, so there are very few Romagnot surnames that survived. Kapsali, Galimidi, Ruditi, meaning someone from the Rhodes Island, Politi, and Bihar. I wrote a large article about that explain why it is most likely Romagnots. It is an abbreviation of Bet Kavod Rabbi, son of Mr. Someone. So it was taken by many Jews who, at the turn of 20th century, had no surnames, and the people who the family that had having no surnames at the beginning of 20th century. They had at least their paternal ancestors, most likely they were Romagnots. We have many names. This is my last slide. We have many names which are coming from male given names. For example, Baruch, Menachem, Menashe, Samuel, Natan, Chaim, Pinchas, Yom Tov, Nahum. We don't know from this name or what were their paternal ancestors, because they're just Jewish given names. But if we see that they existed already in 16th century, most often we can, as last name, they could be, at least for some of them, they could be Sephardic or Italian. But for those that appeared only in the 19th century, Nahum, Pinchas, Yom Tov, this is the probability is high that they were Roman, from family whose paternal ancestors were Romagnots. And of course, everywhere we find the name Kohen and Levi. And when we see Kohen or Levi, we don't know, of course, what were the ancestors, passenger ancestors, whether they were Sephardic or Italian or Southern France or from North Africa or Romagnot. We don't know this. So again, this is the last picture that shows the contribution as I see it, being based on the different data. And here it is, we are. So if you have some questions, I will look to them. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sasha. What a knowledgeable and brilliant talk, and much to think about you have given us. I want to make sure you have a little time for your questions and answers, and time to look at the many questions that came in while you were talking, and many of them from people who seem extremely knowledgeable and are questioning some of and adding to many of your observations. I want to also remind you that next week on Tuesday, the 22nd at 3, there's a talk that may be interesting for many of you. It's introducing the JewishGen Crypto Jewish collection with Jeannie Milgram. And also in response to your earlier request for links, the program, the link to today's program won't be available for a few days, and it will be on the JewishGen discussion group. The very easiest way for you to get the past programs is simply, after a lot of work, I figured this out, to just Google JewishGen and YouTube, and you will find the JewishGen YouTube channel, which has all of the past programs in it. So it's not necessary to post anything. Sasha.
Okay, so a large majority of questions correspond to a very specific last name. So I will answer just a few questions that correspond to general. For example, there was a question about Romania. You see here, Romania, initially the communities that were living here, they was always small until the beginning of 19th century, yeah. And initially, the Jews who were living, in Bucharest, so the area in the south from Romania, and they were mainly Sephardic. So they were coming from Bulgaria, which was part of Ottoman Empire. But actually, even Romania was a vassal country for Ottoman Empire. And so here, Jews who were living in Romania, they were initially, until the beginning of, until the turn of the 19th century, they were mainly Sephardic. And then beginning with the start of the 19th century, there was huge migration of Jews from, Ashkenazic Jews, mainly from Galicia and Bukovina, so Habsburg Empire, and this is they migrated to Iași, so northern Romania, and more southern. And so in the 20th century, already a large majority of Romanian Jews were Ashkenazic, with their ancestors who came from the territory of modern Western Ukraine and southern Poland. Uh, uh, I Yeah, there was also another question. When I was, this is a very interesting question. I think it's deserved to be shown again. Here, when I was showing an example, a sample of names from Spain, many of them are of Arabic origin. And so the question is, why there are many names of Arabic origin that came from Spain? The explanation is in the history of Sephardic Jews. So as I told you, numerous names were used by Sephardic Jews for centuries already before the expulsion of the end of the 15th century. And when I say for centuries, that means many of them were acquired before the territory of future kingdom of Aragon, a kingdom of Castile, so that were combining, they gave rise to Spain. So before this country, before the Reconquista period, so before they became Christian again. And so these names were taken during the period when Spain, the territory of modern Spain and modern Portugal, was under the Muslim rule. And so the Jews, local Jews, were also speaking, of course, Arabic languages. So they were integrated in the dominated group. So this is why we were also speaking Arabic language in their everyday life. And the Spanish name, they started only later when starting from the north, the territory of modern Spain started to be reconquered by Christians. And so initially in the Aragon, later in Castile, and at the end in 1492, the last area of Arabic, of Muslim dominance, it's Granada, city of Granada, where was the last area that was taken by Christian. So this is why we have several layers. The oldest one is Arabic, and the more recent is Spanish. And of course, as I told, the most recent layer of Jewish names with Sephardic roots, it's the Portuguese Jews names, which were taken by Jews Sephardic Jews who returned to the religion of their ancestors 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, even 7 generations after being Catholics. So if I will have a lecture about these Portuguese Jews, because their history is really passionate, really fascinated, I will go into more detail. We don't have time now to discuss in more detail the history of Portuguese Jews. Portuguese community were already open Jewish community for several decades in 18th century. De facto, yes, but de jure, no. De jure, the community, Portuguese community of southern France, they became authorized to become openly Jewish in 1790 only. So French Revolution. And it is, of course, said by all scholarly works. I know Sephardim such as Abravanel migrated to Italy initially. Why are you calling Jews from Italy as non-Sephardim? The explanation is when I say that Italian Jews are non-Sephardim, I don't mean every Jew who came through Italy. What I was saying here when I was explaining migration, for example, from Italy, here, for example. Uh, of course, if a family called Abravanel was migrating to Ottoman Empire from Italy, of course, we were Sephardim. But I was speaking about family whose ancestors never lived in Italy. So they lived in Italy before the expulsion, and they lived, for example, the Jews from Sicily who were expelled. Some families were Sephardic, because there were already some migration from Spain to Sicily during the 15th century, even during the 14th century. But these were rather exception. The majority of Sicilian Jewry was not of Sephardic origin. Their origin are not very clear, but they did not come from Spain. They were Arabic speaking, and Jews from Calabria, Jews from Apulia, Jews from Rome, their ancestors, Jews who were living in Rome before for example, to Rome, there were many Sephardic Jews who came after the expulsion. But before they came, there were already a large community of Jews in Rome, and this community, of course, was not Sephardic. The community was Italian, and this community had as ancestors, exactly as Jews from Calabria and Apulia, the ancestors who came to the territory of modern Italy during the Roman times, and not from Spain, but from other areas when it was during the Roman times. So this is why I call many Jews from Italy were not Sephardic, but some of them, for example, almost all Jews who migrated from Livorno or from Venice, many Jews who migrated from Livorno or from Venice to Ottoman Empire, they were indeed Sephardic. But this is because this community were at large part founded by Jews, Portuguese Jews, who came as Catholics from Spain since the end of the 16th century, during the all of the 17th century. They became open Jews here, so these were Sephardic Jews, and then some of them, or their descendants, they came from Livorno and Venice, that were these two cities. In Livorno was really a Sephardic Portuguese community par excellence. In Venice, there were one half maybe that was Sephardic and another half was Ashkenazic. So some areas were really Sephardic, but all southern Italy was not Sephardic. I will just, yeah.
Last question.
Okay. I will just look question and answers. What language did the Italian Ashkenazim speak? Was it already Yiddish? It depends of the time period. Before the beginning of 18th century, and for example, during the whole 16th century, and before the Ashkenazic Jews who populated northern Italy, they were speaking the language that was the ancestor of Western Yiddish. So we speak, and actually after the printing came to life, the largest majority of most important religious book of Ashkenazim, they were printed in northern Italy by local Jews who were Ashkenazic by their right, and also they were speaking still the old Western Yiddish. But gradually they switched to Italian. And so they abandoned Yiddish and they started to speak Italian. And then some of them, if some of them were coming to a community like Livorno, which was dominantly Sephardic, and when many people were speaking, at least at the beginning, the Portuguese language, and were using Portuguese, right? I think they were switching to the language of their Sephardic brethren. So this is why this is how the and then when Ashkenazic Jews came from Italy to Turkey, gradually in 20th century, where descendants are speaking Turkish already.
Thank you. I want to thank you not only for your generosity in time and spending with us today, but for all your work, which benefits so many of the researchers so profoundly. If you're out and in the middle of a snowstorm, please get home safely, and look forward to your joining us next week and in the future. And thank you. And also thank you to Kaylin Deal for working with us from Jewish Gen. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.